All right, so we're here today to talk about some things. My name is Blake,
My name's Gina.
Dustin.
and we're here to just talk about the shape of the Earth and other various things that come up out of that topic. Were you raised to believe that the Earth is spherical, or were you not raised in that manner?
I was definitely raised by, my mother and my father both believe that the earth is a ball that is spinning in a vacuum. I was taught that my entire life, throughout high school, throughout middle school, elementary school, and you name it. Everyone around me, you can shake anyone on the sidewalk and ask them, is the earth round or flat? And they're probably going to tell you that the earth is round.
Sure,
And
it's
that
what we
kind
were
of
all brought up
influence.
to
Right.
believe.
At what age did you start questioning that?
I started questioning it when I was 20. Talked to a lot of different professors, been up and talked to people at observatories and things like that, and talked to Neil deGrasse Tyson, through email and stuff like that. There are websites, the name escapes me right now, but they are all of the information that NASA provides us about our sun. So proton counts, the speeds and the density and the particles of the solar winds, the electromagnetic aspects of it. You can find all that information online. They give it to you. And I was studying that, trying to predict earthquakes with a friend of mine here in Ohio. His name is Suspicious Observers on YouTube. We were both trying to predict earthquakes using the information we were gleaming from the solar wind data that you can find online. And he wasn't making sense to me with his science. And I wasn't able to grasp what he was trying to tell me with his science. It just wasn't clicking with me.
And was that the inconsistencies in his science? Was that related to the shape of the Earth, and you were starting to see inconsistencies
It was
there?
related to the data because the data we were getting, for me, didn't reflect what we should actually be seeing and we should actually be getting. And as I've come to understand now, given what we're about to talk about, I believe that data is fake. It's all fake.
Fascinating. So what were the first hints that you saw that the Earth was really not that the model of the universe you'd been presented with your whole life were not really true? I'm sure initially
It was the moon.
the
Actually.
moon.
I was
What about
observing
the moon?
There's a guy on YouTube. His name is Crow777. He's got a radio show called Crow777 Radio.
Is that with a C or a K?
CRROW 777 Radio. 777 Radio. You can find his stuff. He has a website and he also has a YouTube channel. He has observations of the moon that he's taken with an extremely advanced telescopic camera setup. He's got a fucking 14-inch telescope with a really, really nice Nikon attached to the end of it, and he's able to take very, very detailed resolution videos and photos of the moon. He's captured UFOs going across the moon.
Wow.
He had an optics expert analyze the footage, do all the math. He has, you can find these presentations and verify it for yourself. He has it all on his website, all the math, all the things that he did with this optics expert to show what they were looking at, to see if that object that they captured going across the moon, it was a very tiny black dot, not even a couple pixels, and it goes across the moon. And he's got thousands and thousands of them that he's captured, okay? In different frames, in different ways, in different speeds. And he's wondering, are they outside of our atmosphere in the heliocentric model, or are they inside of our atmosphere? The optics expert, when they did everything together, told him, I believe that these objects are inside of our atmosphere. Because according to Occam's razor, it's less to assume that there's a very small object, only a couple hundred feet in size, inside of our atmosphere, than it is to imagine that there's 20,000 mile wide objects outside of our atmosphere flying around constantly. Because he literally captures them all the time. Go look up his videos. Crow777 Radio if you want to prove it. He's also got one piece of footage that's mind-blowing. It's called the lunar wave. And he captured footage of the moon, and the moon literally refreshed itself like a computer screen.
Would Occam's razor also suggest that a more plausible explanation would be that the footage was faked, because that would require even fewer assumptions?
I've also captured these things myself with my own camera setup and verified that I've also seen these.
Okay.
Okay, so you have these pictures yourself.
I have video myself. It's on my computer. I haven't uploaded it because I'm afraid to.
Right.
I'm actually afraid to upload it. But if we organize this again, I can bring this footage up and I will show it. So the moon, the actual image of the moon that I captured on the computer was only about like this big compared to the whole screen.
Sure,
and then I had to digitally crop it in more so you can actually see the moon. And then I was still able to capture things occulting the moon. And I captured birds too and compared them, and they were never anything like birds or anything like jets. And I've captured birds, jets, you name it.
Surely these things aren't big enough to be seen like with the naked eye. Though,
I've
right?
never
You have
seen
to have-
any of them with my naked
Okay.
eye, and I've looked at the moon a lot, even
Okay.
through binoculars.
Okay, that's interesting. I've not heard of those before. So this sort of led you down the path to start questioning the model of the universe you'd been presented with, right? So
And coming forward and like questioning that, especially in our society where the earth is round is considered a fact and everyone has agreed upon that, has that like hindered you in your research and study to like stop doing it, to think, hey, you know, maybe I'm crazy, or maybe these people are right, or something like that? Just because I know with societal pressure, it's really hard to come forward and fight something that's so widely accepted.
Truth is three things. First, truth is rejected. Then truth is violently opposed. Finally, it is accepted as self-evident. Those are the three stages truth goes through. With that being said, I like being a rebel. I like opposing these things. It's fun. And it's even more fun knowing that I've actually found something. It's fun. It's a hobby for me. You know, my hobby never became boring. It never became something that I hated or something that brought me down. If anything, it drove me more that people hated it. It drove me more that people disliked it. It drove me more that I would talk to someone and they would get frustrated with me.
So when you first heard of the idea of the flat Earth, did you go through a process probably much like what Gina and myself are experiencing?
Everyone
of
goes
like,
through the same process.
There's
There's no fucking way.
You're like, that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
So kind of walk us down the path that you went through from
the reason
from
why
where we
I went
are.
from there to it couldn't be ridiculous is because of the fucking symbolism, man. Alright, so I'm sorry I didn't mean to swear. You can beat that one out. The Jesuits are involved and the Catholic Church is involved and the Masons are involved and how all these things are connected and how all these things happen and why they happen and how I can prove that they happen and where the symbolism comes from and why it's so important to understanding when you see a picture of a famous person and they're at a galley and on their plate is a piece of pizza with 3 walnuts. That's symbolism right there. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Because in the pedophilia industry, pasta means little girls and pizza means little boys. And if you have walnuts, white walnuts mean white little boys and black walnuts mean black little boys. That's symbolism for you.
Do you think like every pizza is just a piece of pizza?
Why would a fucking multi-million-dollar person go to a gala and eat one slice of pizza with 3 walnuts on a fucking piece of fucking paper plate, dude? Why? Why is there all this other symbolism around them at that same gala that I could show you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have an answer. I wouldn't think they'd be eating that at a gala. You're right.
Why does John Podesta have so many images of him showing his hands up with 2 pictures drawn on his hands? John Podesta, a very famous pedophile. The symbolism. If you look at Yggdrasil, so this is an ancient depiction of the flat Earth. And if we look at it here, we have Antarctica, the ice walls. We have the tree of life in the center. We have the lands around it. We have the serpent eating itself, which is a symbol for the clock, for the perpetual cycle of life and everything around it. And then we have the dome above our head, which is that's the flat Earth. You want to talk about Mother Earth? Mother Earth is flat Earth. You know, Mother Earth is goddess. You want to talk about God and gods? Mother Earth is goddess. The sun above our head is God. The sun is our father, gives us everything we need to survive. Our bones, our bloods, it is our provider. Everything that we are today is because of the sun's energy. And we are also of Mother Earth. I came here, you came here because of your mother's waters. Your mother birthed you out of her mother's waters. So your mother is your creator. Your mother is God. My mother is God. Women are God.
So the symbolism is what led you from
it couldn't be real to I need to think about this.
Okay. And kind of like what the what happened, like, once you started to see the symbolism and you started to put things together and you kind of started to transition from, all right, I need to look into this to a little more.
I started doing real life experiments, and I started actually trying to find the science out, and that's where we're about to get to.
Awesome. Okay, we're gonna kind of move on now and kind of help us understand the way you see the universe existing and the shape of the earth and all the other heavenly bodies and things, because Gina and myself, like most people, have this heliocentric model with a spherical earth rotating, etc., etc.
As we were brought up and raised to believe.
Exactly. Take all the time you need here to, well, hopefully not like
I got
the rest of
super good for you guys.
So kind of like help us understand like the way you see the earth and like how the continents are arranged on the earth and
I got you.
like the other heavenly bodies, the sun, moon, the planets.
So, this is going to be difficult because I don't have some certain visual aids I would love. Okay. I was taught that right now, in this reality, we are actually on a sphere. And this sphere has an axis, a north and a south axis, and it's spinning around that axis. And it's tilted slightly at 23.3 degree angles.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's this force called gravity. And gravity is the reason why I am not being flung into the sky right now. You ever hear someone say that? And if you ever try to take a fan, if you ever try to take anything and spin it like a fucking straw with something at the end and spin it, it'll fucking centrifugal force will fling it outwards. And if you've ever painted and you've cleaned a paintbrush, you can really see that water go out in a perfect line, but in a spiral outwards due to centrifugal force. It has an axis of momentum that's perpendicular to the spin.
Okay.
I do understand the heliocentric model, guys.
Yes.
So, I could go on and on about the heliocentric model. All of the stars that we see are suns just like our own. We're told that that's a giant ball of fusion, that it's a giant nuclear blast happening constantly. We cannot look at a nuclear blast. If they tell us that anyone who's ever looked at a nuclear blast has gone completely blind, because the flash is so intense it will blind you instantly. That's how much light is produced.
And also, nuclear blasts aren't a common thing you see.
Yeah, that's true. But when they have happened, according to what we've been told, they're so bright they would blind you. Look it up. If that is true, and you can verify that if you want, that's what I've been told. That's what I verified. That's what I found out about nuclear blasts. One of the things. So why is it that a billion nuclear blasts, with nothing in between them, doesn't blind us? With nothing between us and that nuclear blast, it doesn't matter how far it is away. There's nothing blocking the light. Our own atmosphere doesn't block it inside of our atmosphere. It's not going to block the nuclear blast from that sun. Why do we not blind it every time we look at it? Why have I been able to sun gaze and stare at the sun for an entire day and not go blind?
I don't know.
I've never tried to stare at the sun, so that's not something I want to test.
Yeah.
The ancient Indians talk about sun gazing. The ancient Navajo Indians sun gazed.
Although I would have to say, when I do look up at the sun, I feel like I am blinded for a few moments.
It like hurts.
Yeah, it hurts
eyes.
to look at it.
Okay.
So when you say that you sun gaze and you're looking directly at this, like how long are you looking into the sun?
You look into the sun for up to an hour, but I had to build myself up to that.
Right.
The correct way to sun gaze is to go outside at either dawn or dusk when the sun is farthest away from you in the sky.
Okay.
And there's almost no UV light coming from the sun at those points in the day, at dawn and dusk.
Okay.
And so you will not damage your eyes at all if you look at the sun during dawn or dusk. And that's what the ancient Indians would do.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that every day just for a couple seconds and stare at the sun, and it will actually improve your vision.
Okay. So then would you say if you were to go outside now and stare directly into the sun?
That would be a bad idea.
Right. So then the idea of it blinding you is then rendered true?
No, because even if I were to go outside, and I'll go outside and look at the sun for 10 minutes right now at high noon, and I will still be able to see just fine. And then tomorrow, I will be just fine. You know why? Because I sun gazed during the eclipse. The last eclipse in 2017, I looked at it with my eyes straight the entire eclipse. Here I am, I can see fine. 20/20 vision.
Wow.
And I actually have footage of the eclipse that proves that the Earth is flat out of that, because I was not able to capture the moon at all during that eclipse. The moon was not there. It did not approach the sun. It was not in the sky that entire day. I see the moon during the day in Ohio every day around 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it not there that day? Why did it not approach the sun, occult the sun, and then pass away from the sun in a way that was visible like it is any other day?
Oh, that's a good question.
Right. I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Back to kind of the layout of the Earth. You know, you brought up like the ancient Norse Yggdrasil tree here. Oh yeah, good. That'd be good to kind of get an illustration. So is it kind of like the Antarctic ice wall? Is that
all right? So
the way you see it?
This is a good representation of the Earth. So right here we have a sphere. You know, we have a sphere. Okay, this is what we are told the Earth is. This is the heliocentric model of the Earth. Okay.
Yep.
We are told it's a sphere. All right. The sphere is spinning like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna get rid of the wobble for a second. That's the axis. It's spinning like this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that means if you're standing here, you're not gonna get flung out this way. You're gonna get flung out that way. If you're here, you're not gonna get flung out that way. You're actually gonna get flung out that way. Still, because it's going to be flung out with the same axis of the momentum of the spin.
Wouldn't and I don't honestly know the answer to this. I'm like, I know a little bit of physics, but it wouldn't like the angular momentum be like a lot greater like down here than like
It
up
would
here?
be. It
Like
would be.
conceivably, if you were at the North
You're right.
Pole, you wouldn't get flung off in this model.
In the heliocentric model, if this is accurate, and where gravity is pushing in every direction like this,
Mhm.
okay? But we're being flung off like this. So that means the only place you would be able to have the same direction gravity is pushing down as the Earth is flinging you out is at the equator and the poles. That means that those rocks that we saw should only be possible on the equator. And they would be impossible anywhere else on Earth. Because if you're here, that rock is being pulled in this angle of momentum and being flung out at this angle of momentum. And so nowhere else on the Earth would there be the correct alignment of gravity pushing in and the angular momentum of the centrifugal force pushing out except on the equator. And thus those rocks cannot be created anywhere else on the equator on a heliocentric model.
Now, could we go back to the rocks, because I don't think we were filming when we were talking about
So,
them.
will you pull up those rocks for me? Those sculptures? And then I'm going to reiterate that a little bit better. Okay, so we see these rocks here. These are possible because this rock right here, even though it's balanced on that tiny rock, and fucking look at that lean right there. Fucking look at that shit. That's fucking crazy. It's all got the same angle where, okay, so what's going on is in gravity. It's density and buoyancy. All right, and I'll get into that in a second. So imagine gravity doesn't exist and you don't know anything about gravity. This is possible because of density and buoyancy, and because of balance, and because we're on a stationary plane. If we were on the heliocentric model like we were taught, the only way that you would have the center of gravity going straight down is when you were on the equator, because this is being flung off from the Earth, right? We're all being flung off from the Earth because of centrifugal force, and we're stuck here because of gravity. The only place that angle is the same is on the equator. Because like I said, if this is, gravity is pushing in all directions. So if you're here, it's pushing in here. If you're here, it's pushing in here. That's a 90-degree difference in the terms of where gravity is pushing you at.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're being pushed down, all right, and then also flung up like this, you're going to be fine. You're not going to be moving.
Sure.
But if you're flung off like this and being pushed down like that, you're going to move.
Now, I'm not like...
you guys see where I'm going with this?
I do. I don't know, again, qualifying this with, I'm no physics expert. I'm like, I know some physics, and my understanding is like force. I remember force is equal to mass times acceleration. That's one of Newton's laws. The second, maybe. I don't really remember. But the key element in that equation being acceleration, and the fact is that there is essentially no acceleration evolved in the rotation of the Earth. A very, very, very negligible deceleration. Okay. Like I said, negligible. So, I mean, I don't know. Would that factor in?
Does the acceleration have anything to do with the fact that it's still in motion and that motion has an angle of momentum?
Say that again?
Does the acceleration factor in to the fact that this object is still rotating and still has an angle of momentum? Does the acceleration matter if the paintbrush is accelerating when I spin it or spinning at a constant rate?
If it's moving at a constant rate, I wouldn't expect there to be any force acted upon it. Like if you're in a car that's going 100 miles an hour, it feels the same when the car as it does if the car is at
but
rest.
if you were to stop instantly, all that momentum becomes apparent.
Yes, that's the deceleration right there. Okay. And that's the force you're experiencing. Whereas if the Earth is actually spinning at a near constant rate, you're essentially experiencing no force.
All right, so breaking a sweat out here, guys. Breaking a sweat out here. You can talk to any expert, and they will tell you that we would be flung off the Earth due to Earth's centrifugal force.
But wouldn't it be when the Earth stops spinning?
No, even when it's still spinning. This still proves that the heliocentric model is false because those sculptures could not exist anywhere except where the heliocentric model would allow them to exist.
Okay.
And that is only on the equator because of what I tried to describe here, where the difference of the angle of the momentum is still affecting things. You know, if you were to take a car, for example, and put me in that car, okay, and then I traveled along a road, and someone continuously pushed me even more and more and more as I traveled along that road, I would change my thing, right?
Right, that would be acceleration.
That's what I'm describing, because as you move on the heliocentric model, the gravity is changing, and thus you're being affected by centrifugal force differently. If you go up here to the poles, the Earth is not spinning very much at all. That means you would weigh more at the poles than you would at the equator, because gravity would be affecting you less at the equator because that's where the centrifugal force is most.
Okay, that makes sense. I myself don't know. I haven't really looked into it. And like I said, I don't know enough about physics to...
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't have anything to argue against that. So.
Yeah.
That's my hole in the heliocentric model. The hole in the heliocentric model is simply we were just told our entire lives that we have a ball. That ball is spinning on an axis. Okay, and if you look up physics, you'll be told by any physics professor that ball spinning on an axis has centrifugal force. And because this ball is so massive that's spinning, it has gravity to it, and that gravity is affecting us also. And as you travel to different places in the globe, the gravity will affect you differently because of the difference of the rotation in that axis. You know, like it's rotating less up here than it is up here. So the centrifugal force would be less up here than it would be here.
Okay. Yeah, my understanding of gravity was that, like, I mean, I don't think the word you're looking for there is that the gravity is different. I think it's more the force you would be experiencing.
Exactly. The force you're experiencing because of gravity would be different. Not gravity is different, but the force you feel on yourself from it would.
Yeah, I don't think it would be I still don't think that's quite right. The force, I get what you're saying though. The net of forces you would experience
would change.
Right. Gravity, I would think, would be constant.
It is constant, yeah. That's not what I'm trying to say.
Due to the rotation, you would experience a net difference in force.
Yes. Thank you.
Cool. Jeannie, could you hand me one of those markers?
Yes.
So I kind of want to just kind of sketch out and see if this is what you kind of think the Earth looks like from looking down from above. And I don't know. That's why I'm bringing that is to it. Let's try the other one. Yeah.
I got that one for you too.
So looking from above, it's, I don't know, something kind of like, here's North America. Look, I'm no artist. And here's South America or whatever that's supposed to be, Alaska. Here's Europe or whatever.
The Potter's Clay on YouTube, please.
Africa.
The Potter's Clay.
So something kind of like this, and then like the Antarctic ice wall. Is that roughly the idea of kind of what you think it is?
Yeah, can I clarify it though?
Yeah,
it's similar.
absolutely.
It's very similar. I mean, you're pretty much spot on. When we talk about the flat Earth, it's really not so much flat as it's round. You know, that's one way to look at it. It's still a round Earth, but
yeah.
All right, so if you were to look at it from the side, this is what we're talking about. You ever see this symbol?
Yeah.
The division symbol.
The division symbol, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. This is the sun and the black sun.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the black sun.
Yeah, can you elaborate on the black sun?
This is symbolism. So when we talk about the flat Earth is one white hole, one black hole on loop. The sun and the black sun on loop. Okay? The black sun is Mother Earth, and the white sun is the sun above us. Mm-hmm. And these two things, like I was describing, are the energy circuit, the positive and the negative, the positive terminal, the negative terminal. They are the transition of energy. Energy cannot be changed, cannot be destroyed, can only be, it can't be destroyed, it can't be created, it can only be changed. And so this is the change of energy. You can't bottle energy up, it has to be moving, it has to be flowing. So this is the loop, and that's a symbol for you that's about the flat Earth. So the division symbol talks about the flat Earth, and that's truth hidden in plain reality. Because if you want to talk about a lot of things with the flat Earth, you have to look at the symbolism of it all. Just like I was showing you Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil had the flat Earth, and then the tree, and then the tree going through it into the bottom. Remember, that's a symbol of the white sun and the black sun. The tree of life above the surface is the white sun, and then the roots on the trunk of the tree going through the bottom are the black sun. All right, the potter's clay, it's that one right there. All right, now this is, like I said, it's not total truth. Now on this one, there's gonna be. All right, get out of the shit. I don't know if I can see the shit.
Whiteboard.
Yeah, of course. Alright. Accidentally proving the Earth is flat. That's a really good one. This video demonstrates that the curvature science we've been taught about the flat Earth. Mm-hmm. This video demonstrates an inconsistency with curvature, and shows an inconsistency with what we are being presented with the science of curvature. So we can watch that later on. I just wanted to pull it up. Accidentally proving the Earth is flat by the potter's clay is a great one. So now we're going to talk about what we see as the shape of the Earth and what's actually going on. My big guys, I'm being clumsy. Luckily that was empty because I'm a fucking coffee whore. Love coffee. Love it. Alright, it's good enough. Improvise, guys. So, what's really going on here is we got Polaris. Polaris proves the Earth is flat. Why? Because the Chinese have star charts that they have drawn from over 4,000 years ago. And those star charts are perfectly accurate today. If we live on a ball that is spinning in a vacuum, and there's a star called Polaris, how is it that after 4,000 years that star is in the same place in our sky?
Maybe it's moving very slowly.
It's not. Look it up. If you were to actually do the math, and I did, there's no way Polaris should be in the same place it is today as it was 4,000 years ago, let alone 20,000 years ago, because the Sumerians also have their own star charts that are perfectly accurate as they are today.
Could we all be moving at the same pace?
We're not. The Earth and the Sun, there's no way that the Earth and the Sun are moving in the exact same angle and velocity as every single other star in the sky for them all to stay the same and be the same.
How could you prove that it's not?
If you look up visualizations of our local cluster, you can do it on, there's a thing called Universe Sandbox. You can also find universities that have done their own simulations of our local cluster. You can see throughout our local cluster, which is everything we see in the sky, that they are all moving in their own velocity and ways and methods, and we are not moving perfectly with them. I've seen the simulations.
Oh,
so
the further something away is, it appears to move less from your current standpoint. Like if you were standing 5 feet away from me and you walked a foot to the side, well, the angle you would move in my field of vision would be this much. If you were standing 10 miles away and you walked 5 feet to your right, well, you'd hardly move at all.
Right.
If you were a million light years or whatever away, you also, wouldn't move very far.
But after 20,000 years of continuous moving and continuous acceleration, the science will tell you that after 4,000 years, even in the simulations, things will have moved enough that we should see different constellations.
Well,
in the sky.
what about the idea of when a star dies, its light still travels to us, and we don't find out that the star is dead until many, many years after it has passed?
Yeah.
So then, could it be the idea of the light is still traveling to us and we still haven't got the updated position and angle of where this new star is at?
Yeah, one day we might see a star blink out, and yeah, that star may be a sun that have died.
But years ago.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't really matter to what I'm saying. I'm sorry.
I get what you're saying. So back to the question I was having about like the apparent angle for more different things that further away. Would you agree that if the universe were infinitely vast, that there would be some distance away which something could be that over 4,000 years, over 20,000 years, it moving a lot would be imperceptible or almost...
Yeah, but that's not everything in the sky, so that doesn't matter. What we do see in the sky, what we are told about, should have moved. Regardless of the facts of it, like, when it comes to Polaris, there are people in the southern hemisphere that can see Polaris.
And that shouldn't be the case.
That shouldn't be the case. That's a big part of it, too. I've talked to people in Australia that have seen Polaris with their own eyes. That should be impossible. They're on the southern hemisphere.
What about the southern hemisphere equivalent called the Southern Cross? That's
not a true southern star. That's not the Southern Star. That's the Southern Cross, but it's not the South Pole Star in officiality on the heliocentric model. There is no South Pole Star on the heliocentric model.
That's fair. Okay. Cool. What about like the sun and the moon, and are they spherical? Are they flat, do you think?
Well, you know what, there's a lot of observation that would have to go into a lot of these things to really nail it down. I haven't done enough observation to tell you what the sun is or what the moon is or what any of it is. I can tell you for 100% fact that the moon isn't a sphere. I've done so much observation on the moon that I can tell you it is not a sphere. It does not reflect light like a sphere should in any way, shape, or form. And there's an inconsistency with it because if you actually measure the light coming off the moon, it's colder than the light around it. If you take go outside at night on a full moon and measure something in the shadow, and then measure that same object in the moonlight, and it'll be colder in the moonlight. And if it was reflecting the sun's light, that should be impossible. It shouldn't be colder. And if you actually take the time, I have a buddy of mine. He's an electronics expert, and we fucking took this thing. It's like a photoreceptor, and we stuck it into a oscilloscope. And the wave that we got off the optical receptor when we shined it at the moon was a square wave.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really weird shit with that. The moon's really, really weird.
So what do you think the moon is then? Just kind of like a disc hovering up above us, kind of going around like... That
would have to go into symbolism, and you're not going to believe me, but I can prove it to you with symbolism that the moon is most likely a soul eater. It eats our souls. It steals our energy. It's constantly stealing our chi from us. And it's a part of the deception that we have. The deception that we have in terms of the globe Earth is so much more than political parties trying to take away God and try to take away free energy from us. You know, that's really what it is. It's about removing our idea that we are in an important place. They want us to think we're minuscule, that we're monkeys that evolved out of monkeys, that evolved out of dust, and that we are totally meaningless and random, and everything that happens here is meaningless and random. That's what they want us to think, because it takes the power of creation and it puts it outside of us. We have the ability to do whatever we want. We have the ability to create whatever we want. We have gifts as human beings here in this reality. We can do whatever we want. We can create whatever we want. We can create a heaven on earth for the benefit of all and remove all sadness and depravity. We could live together and everyone can have any luxury that anyone else has. And they take that from us and they steal it from us and they keep us working for useless paper backed by our own stupidity. So those people that have done this over thousands of years, since the Egyptians, can live in squalor. They can buy $1 billion car and drive it around. Why I have to spend the rest of my life working just so I can make music in my spare time. How is that cool? If I had $1 billion, I would not be buying cars with it. I would be making sure that everyone around me had the same luxuries I have because I'm trying to be selfless.
Sure, yeah.
not selfish.
That sounds like it would be a much better way
Right.
for the world to be.
And I would agree with that too, but we can't really debate how other people spend their time and money.
We
That's
don't
fair.
have to. All we have to do is come together for a common cause of survival. If everyone came together for a common cause of survival, it wouldn't matter about all the little details. It would just matter about our survival.
So do you want to talk about what you're drawing for us now?
Right now, I'm drawing a depiction of the flat Earth, and it's not perfect. It's just like these are going to be symbols and representations.
So, but before we get into a little more about, as you're drawing up your map of the flat Earth, there one last thing I was kind of wondering about, like the planets, is so you did say you're kind of agnostic on the shape of the planets themselves.
Well, that's kind of an interesting word, agnostic.
Like you're not sure whether they're spherical or discs like the Earth.
You know what the ancients called the planets the wandering stars, and I've taken a lot of time to observe Saturn and Jupiter through a telescope.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be friends with the Boy Scout troop, and I can use their telescope anytime I want. So it's like a 16-inch telescope or something like that. It's one of the big ones you got to take out to a field.
Sure.
And I observed Saturn through it, and I've observed Jupiter through it, and I've observed a couple stars through it. And from my experience as an artist, someone who went to art school, someone who studies light, someone who works in the film industry and studies light and knows the laws of light and how they work and how things reflect off of each other, how spheres reflect, I've never seen Saturn or Jupiter actually reflect light like a sphere should.
And you've said this a few times, like a sphere should. How should a sphere reflect light?
Most spheres have a hot spot, and then everything else falls away from them. All right. Now, even if there's not a hot spot, everything will fall away from that sphere perfectly. Not only that, the moon, for instance, we're told it's a sphere. When I see the moon in the sky here in Ohio, I cannot see anything except the white portion of the moon that we're told is the sun's reflected light. Well, that's impossible. If it's a sphere, I should see the entirety of the moon in the sense that the portion not reflecting any light should still be slightly visible against the sky. And if you take any small-scale example of light, you can recreate that, where you will not see blue sky through the moon. We should still always be able to see, not at night, of course, but when I'm talking about when it's out during the day, we should be able to see the silhouette of the rest of the moon against the sky, if it was really a sphere reflecting light as a sphere should.
But not if it was a disc. It wouldn't work.
Well,
like
it
that.
could be a concave disc. Have you ever experimented with a concave disc in light?
No,
You
never.
should sometimes. You can recreate the moon very easily with that. You can also recreate the moon's phases by taking a disc that reflects light and putting it in water, or like a concave plate and putting it in water and taking it out. So there are small-scale experiments that can make us question about what we're seeing. Obviously, we're not seeing a sphere. If we were really seeing a sphere when we saw the moon during the 2017 eclipse, I should have seen that moon approach, be in the sky before the eclipse, like we see it all the time. And when the eclipse did happen, all I saw was blue sky through the eclipse. I'm looking at a crescent of the sun, and all I see is blue sky through that crescent. I should have seen the silhouette of the moon during that eclipse as well. We all should. We all should see the silhouette of the eclipse, or the silhouette of the moon during the eclipse, after it, everything. And we don't. All I saw was blue sky that day.
I would think if they were going to go to the trouble of putting a fake moon up there.
Who are they? You're saying that there's people that did that? I'm not saying that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying that there are people involved in this. Like I said, this is much more than just political parties. This is a spiritual war. This is something that's beyond. Our souls are at stake. We have souls. All of us have eternal, infinite lives. We are all eternal and infinite. There is no death. We are eternal. Our souls are eternal and infinite. You will find that out one day if you don't believe me. All right, but it just makes sense that we do.
Okay.
And
that's fair.
Go ahead, man.
So what is? and this is probably not going to come out right, but this is the best way I have to phrase it. Is like
No,
what's holding up like the flat Earth, or is it
Does
is
it
just
have to be held up?
No, it doesn't. And
Well, so then the thing is, like, we're floating in this vacuum called space.
Yeah.
So with the model of the flat Earth, does space exist?
Does it? Is it anything what we've been told it is? Could it be something entirely different that we have no concept of? Do we need to suspend all of our things and until we can verify it to be reality, say I don't know?
All right. Well, what about astronauts that have flown into space?
Have they?
Okay. Well,
Have they?
I was going to ask.
Can we verify that? Can we verify it?
us here, no, we can't.
No, we
can't
cannot.
really verify that.
I'll tell you what we can verify. I've talked to railroad engineers that have built railroads in South America.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look up information about these people too. They have lots of information online. There are railroad engineers that have to build railroads over thousands of miles. You would think that curvature would have to factor into their construction in some way, shape, or form, just as canal engineers. Canals have to build canals over hundreds of miles. You would think that after 100 miles, there would be some amount of curvature that they should have to account for in their measurements in constructing that canal, right?
Maybe. Because
if you look it up, after 100 miles, there's over 1,000 feet of curvature.
Oh, is there? Okay, yeah, I don't know the numbers off the top of my
I
head.
do.
I don't.
After 7 miles, there's 53 feet of curvature. It's 8 inches squared per mile.
And they don't. And you're saying they don't actually. Have
I've
to
talked
do
to
that.
them, and they don't. They're all flat earthers because they've never had to account for curvature in any of their constructions.
Would
The Suez Canal is 100 miles long. After 100 miles, there's over 1,000 feet of curvature, and it's straight entirely. Even the people who measured it will tell you it's straight.
have they ever done like
Laser tests? Yeah. Yes,
on,
they have.
on the canal?
They've done it over the largest lake in Russia, and it was flat. It was like a 8-mile lake.
Fascinating.
And after 8 miles, there should be over 50 feet of curvature.
And they
It was
detected
flat.
then.
And I myself have done curvature tests. I took my telescope out to Lake Erie, and I had a charter out 8 miles into Lake Erie. Now, according to the laws of perspective, that's why we see that boat disappear.
Mm-hmm.
The laws of perspective are why we see that boat disappear on the horizon. I was able to bring that boat back into view with the telescope. After 80 miles, there is like right around 800, 900 feet of curvature. It's a little bit more exponential than that. It might be closer, like after 100 miles, it's like, because it's exponential, I think it's like 3,000 miles of curvature. And then or 3,000 feet of curvature. After 100 miles, it's 3,000 feet of curvature. After 70 miles, it would be 1,200 miles of curvature. Or 1,200 feet of curvature, I'm sorry.
And you didn't detect any.
I was able to pull that boat back into view with the telescope. That should be impossible if it's underneath me, being occulted by curve.
And do you remember how far away you said the boat got?
The boat was 80 miles away. I charted it out exactly 80 miles.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that would certainly seem to suggest that
So
the
then,
Earth is
what
flat.
about satellites that have been sent out?
You can do research about it, and there is an extensive balloon program where all satellites are extremely high altitude balloons. They do make satellites, but they put them up on extremely high altitude balloons all over the world, and that's how they do their communication setup.
So how do you think the flat Earth formed, as we all know in the heliocentric model?
I have no idea. We're told in the Bible that God separated the waters from the waters and created the firmament above us. You can do any amount of research you want. You can go into allegory. You can make your own conclusions. I have no idea. I just know that there's problems with the heliocentric model.
Okay.
And what we're presented with as an alternative is no curvature, flat Earth.
Sure. Interesting. So, you had started to draw out on the whiteboard there. So my next question was going to be about how does south on a compass work
All right.
in the flat Earth model?
On the flat Earth, this is what we have. All right, so this squiggly line is the Antarctic ice walls. Antarctica is protected by the Antarctic Treaty. There's 80 governments around the world that have all signed it, and they patrol the waters all around the Antarctic Circle. You can't go there. You're not allowed. No one can. Why? Why can't we explore there?
I had looked up like what it would take to get to Antarctica, and I read there were now maybe this is just a lie because I never actually followed up on it, but I read that there were charters you can take to Antarctica. But
but they're very specific. You can't just go anywhere you want. You have to go to very specific areas.
Okay.
And they will not take you anywhere around where you can actually see the ice walls. But there are pictures of the ice walls you can find. They're very hard to find. You can't just Google search them. But if you go to certain places on the internet, you do some research, you can find them. And they're really crazy looking. But, okay, so what we have here is, at the center of the flat earth plane is north. Polaris is straight at the center, right above us, on the top of the dome. It's the North Star for a reason. North is at the very center of the flat earth plane. Not up here, but in the center, okay? And what that is, that's Mount Meru. That's the tree of life in the center. It's called the Magnetic Mountain. Look up Mount Meru. You can find up lots of symbolism and ancient stories about the Magnetic Mountain, about Hyperborea. The Greeks went to Hyperborea, found the Hyperboreans. Those are all stories about the tree of life at the center of the flat earth plane. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The tree of life at the center of the flat earth plane is the fountain of youth. You know, all these stories are all related to these. It's all like the allegory of David and Goliath. It's all allegory for these things.
So let me stop you for one second. Are you saying that there? Maybe I'm just misunderstanding. Are you saying there is a tree at the?
Yeah, there is actually a giant tree at the center of the flat Earth plane. And explorers have talked about this. General Byrd has described it in his things. If you look up the stories of General Byrd traveling to Antarctica and also traveling to the center of the flat Earth plane, he talks about the giant tree that he discovered and all kinds of other really interesting things. And if you look up the hollow Earth theory, you can find up a lot of information about it too. If you have the discernment to discern, because you know hollow Earth still goes upon the heliocentric model, and I just blew a hole right through that. So. All right, so, and I can continue to do it too, because we didn't even get to crepuscular sun rays, which totally shows that the sun can't be 93 million miles away because of the laws of light. I'll show you that too. So what we got here, this is how they've circumnavigated the Earth through all these years. So this line here represents east, okay? This one also represents east. This represents east, and this represents east. How? This is south. You only have north, okay? If you look at a compass, you have north and south, and north is always going towards one place. That's because it's attracted to one place, and south is an attraction to a separate place. It's just the other side. It's just the opposite end of that needle, pointing away from it. So if you're here, your north is pointing at north, all right, and you have east here. South would be directly away from you. If you're here, your north is here, your east is here, your south is directly away from you. So as you travel around, your east and west will actually curve with it, because north is always right here. If you're here, your east is going to be here. If you're here, your east is going to be here. If you're here, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's how that works. That's how the circumnavigation works.
So there's something well, no, I guess because of the needle's only getting pulled toward the North Pole.
Exactly. There is no South Pole.
Interesting. You know, with the proportion of scientists out there who you would think would study this sort of thing, they obviously overwhelmingly think that the Earth is in fact a ball. Do you think that the scientists are in on it and putting out false information, or is the trickery or whatever so good that they are actually even misled by it?
All right, so let's talk about a scientist.
Sure.
The majority of the scientists that you're talking about are people that are like me. They went to high school in a public school here in America, and then they went to college, and then from college they went on to a career path. When you talk about scientists, you're not talking about 30,000 people. You're talking about a couple hundred people, really, okay? Because the 30,000 people you're referring to are not scientists. They're helping scientists. They're doing one compartmentalized task out of a bunch, you know? Someone who's in an observatory taking the information from the telescope on the digital computer and reading it out and doing something are not critically thinking about the observations that they're trying to do. They're getting a task done. Okay? So you have to think about that too. You have to think about the larger spectrum of what it means that you just asked me. That is not a simple question. That is a very complex question, and one that needs to be asked in a certain way to get the right answer. So are you asking me, of the few hundred scientists, the people actually out there making observations, that are also people that are in a stature of academic power and success, are those people lying, or are they deceived?
Well, I mean, honestly, I guess I don't really know the numbers of who out there does, what exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I would think there would be, astrophysicists would be involved in it, and I would imagine there's probably more than 300 of them, or, there's a significant number of them in the world. There would be astronomers involved. I would think there would be, like, I don't know, geologists, oceanographers, cartographers, the people involved, at least supposedly, with, like, the satellites that would be orbiting the Earth. I would think they would all have access.
I've talked to people that actually work at places where they build satellites, where they create the idea for the satellite, manufacture, produce it all in one area, and they have nothing to do with anything other than the engineering of what they're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They're not critically thinking about how this is actually going to be implemented, about the execution of the satellite.
Mm-hmm.
They are so focused on just the mechanics of it, because it takes that amount of focus to produce something that intricate.
Sure, that makes sense.
Okay? So then you have to think, so they don't have anything to do with the science of satellites. They're getting an order and making it. Who's giving the order? The government. The government is funding the order and making it happen. If it's not the government, it's the communications business through the government, because they have to have permission from the government to do their communications. And it's all a fucking circle of money.
What about Elon Musk?
Right.
Has he's like a private individual,
Yeah.
Who's just launching rockets and stuff, and I would think that would like potentially threaten to like blow the cover.
Because he's the type of person who doesn't seem to listen to anyone.
If you do a lot of... I've taken the time to really analyze Elon Musk, and I have a feeling that the reason why he has very recently stopped he doesn't do anything with space now, today. He's done. Look it up. He doesn't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I don't know.
Why is it that in one of his last interviews he said, the reason why the Earth looks so real is because it looks so fake in those images we see. And that's kind of an interesting thing to say for him.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And like the people who would just be like gathering data being made from, or like trying to recalibrate satellite positions and things. It would seem like there would be a lot of people.
I'm listening.
It would just seem like there would be a lot of people. There's many different people that could potentially blow the cover on this whole thing, that it would be hard to...
The reason we're here right now is because of those people. You've heard about the flat Earth before, even before you came here.
Yeah, that's true.
So those are the people that are blowing the cover on it. We wouldn't even have heard about it. It wouldn't even be a thing if there wasn't an extremely invested group of scientists doing natural science, making observations like I did and did curvature tests. I did that because someone else did it, and I wanted to verify their experiment. There are people out there, there are real scientists, people that are actually making observations, making hypotheses, testing their hypotheses with their observations and coming to conclusions, just like I did when I did my curvature test. Those people are not indistinguishable from the academics you're referring to. You're only taking their authority over mine because they are in a state in this world, in this society of classism, where they have somehow gained that authority simply because of their stature and their success. Is their stature or success any different from the person who gets his stature and success by using slave labor to get what he gets? He fucking owns a bunch of slaves and makes them do what he needs to do to mine the shit and get the money he needs. Are they any different? Possibly. In my opinion, a lot of them are just as misguided as everyone else. They're it's so hard for so many people to take their idea of the heliocentric model and challenge it.
Sure.
Because you have to challenge God, you have to challenge everything, you have to question everything, you have to start from a baby and re-verify everything in your world if you're going to say, okay, I've been lied to about the heliocentric model, what else have I been lied to about? And that's a huge journey and that's a huge task, and so many people do not want to fucking deal with that. Because why would you? Why would you want to have to, on top of everything else that we have to deal with here in this life, of all the stress and all the bullshit and all the crazy things that make people want to kill themselves every day. Now I have to add on, no, everyone else around me is delusional as well, and try to deal with that.
Yeah, and
that's very tough.
And they keep us busy in our day-to-day lives so much that we don't really have the time to put forward to diving down the rabbit hole, if you will.
Yeah, I've lost sleep over it. Not a lot of people are willing to do that. Not a lot of people have the opportunities. I'm a musician. I have the opportunities to stay up late and do what I need to do because of my musicianship, as well as taking the time to take breaks and do these things too. I've time managed that shit. That's why I'm able to do it. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about me. It doesn't matter what I've done. It matters the point that everyone needs to be verifying these things. Everyone needs to be taking the time to verify everything in their life, to really understand it. If you can't describe something to a 5-year-old child, you do not understand it.
That's fair. Do you think that like the schools are involved in like indoctrinating?
Where did the schools come from? Look at the facts.
The government.
Every time you go to school, you heard that bell. You guys know who Schrodinger is?
Yeah.
Well, he created that bell. That's his work. That bell makes you forget everything you learned every time you hear it. Look it up. It's a psychological mechanism. That's all the proof you need right there that we live in a deception, that they are not doing anything other than intentionally trying to keep us dumbed down and keep us from critically thinking, keep us from having the information that is out there.
You don't think the bell could maybe just be an indication that it's time to...
It is that, but it's also... Look up Schrodinger, look up his work. You will find that he was the one who found out that bell could make you forget everything that you had just forgot about. It's all association. Just like the dog, through association, salivated when it was shocked. We associate that thing with something else.
I think you're thinking of Pavlov there.
It is Pavlov. You're right. That is Pavlov. My bad. You're right. Pavlov did that. Yep. Sorry, little mix in the
right,
names. That's embarrassing. But yeah,
it's all good. We all make mistakes, right?
But yeah, that's what I'm getting at though. Is like, yes, thank you. Pavlov did that, and yeah, if you look up Pavlov, then you can find out about how his work through association, and he found out about all these things, and they use that against us. So it's like the lesser magic I was talking about with these cereal boxes. It's so obvious once you see it. And then there's no other thing to think other than, okay, they're doing it against us, and it's obviously having a negative effect because our schools are not teaching us critical thinking. Our schools are not teaching us. I had a science teacher who was obsessed about that. He hated the fact that he had to teach this curriculum that didn't really involve critical thinking, so that's why I'm kind of use that word a lot. But so anyways, what was your question again?
I was just asking about like the schools and if
it's hard because Rockefeller, he was the one who created the school system. He was the one who funded the school system. Our public schooling is all because of Rockefeller. If you look it up, he even developed the curriculum. The curriculum, all of us, Common Core, it's all stemmed from what Rockefeller introduced back in the early 30s.
Okay, so like kind of seems like, I don't know, maybe like the organization of the school system and the curriculums being pushed out to the students is, being engineered to like influence us. But maybe not like the teachers themselves. They're just
they're just people working. They're just like me and you. If I would have never taken the time to go on the internet and think critically about something, I could be a science teacher lying to all these students and not realizing I'm lying to all these students.
Sure.
Molding their minds with lies. Father of lies. Everyone is the father of lies.
Do you feel that there's for people out there who do still believe in like the heliocentric model of the universe, do you feel that is like causing harm to them in their lives?
Do you know people who are anemic? People who don't eat enough? Or bulimic, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Anorexic?
Anorexic, thank you. The people who are anorexic, they have a delusion in their mind. When they look in the mirror, they do not see what you and I see about their body. Their brains are literally seeing something else than reality. Okay?
Sure.
And if you take that person, how are you going to cure them? Are you going to feed into their delusion? Are you going to let them believe their delusion? You see how damaging it is, but they don't.
Yeah, they have to realize it for themselves.
So you and I can talk and we can think maybe the heliocentric model is affecting us negatively because it is taking so many people out there and making them think that they are useless and random and insignificant.
And you feel that that's not the case with the flat Earth model?
The flat Earth model, I went out and I went to Lake Erie and I did a test on curvature. Okay, and it wasn't there. What that means to me is that I need to question everything that I've ever been taught, and my conclusions are mine. And if my conclusions are wrong, that's fine. I'm going to change my conclusions if I can be proved differently, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I want. I want everyone to be able to have an open mind and stand in truth. To stand in truth, you have to first violently oppose it, first reject it, then violently oppose it, and then finally accept it as self-evident. All truth is self-evident. Truth is like gold. Gold is immutable. Truth is immutable. There is no lie in truth. There is no fraud and justice cannot dwell together. That's an ancient legal maxim. Fraud and justice cannot dwell together. Truth is immutable. It cannot dwell with anything fraud. It is in itself self-evident when it is self-evident. Just as we can look at those birds and we can self-evidently see what they're doing and make conclusions about it, we can look at our reality and look at what's self-evident. And if you do the curvature test yourself, or if you look up some information about someone who has done it, like those laser tests that I've seen, and make your own conclusions, have your own inner discernment. In psychology, there's a subject, it's called high internal locus and low external locus. If you have a high internal locus, you look inside yourself for answers. Always. You will always, if someone says something, you will look inside yourself and think about what they just said before you make your own conclusion. People with a low internal locus will not. They will do the exact opposite. They will always believe someone else because they don't believe themselves to ever be truthful. They don't believe that they have the confidence and the ability to figure it out. So they rely on someone else that they see the authority in for them to do that. For them to look at them and say, yes, I will accept your authority. That makes, I don't want to do it myself. I can't do it myself. I don't have the ability to figure it out myself, so I'm going to listen to you. And that's, psychology is an important tool. If you learn about that, then you can take that and say, okay, I'm going to have a higher internal locus now. I'm going to look inside myself for answers and say, I do have the confidence. I do have the ability to discern what's right and what's wrong.
So you've talked about some, a few experiments and things that you've conducted to help verify this. And unfortunately, we're not really going to have time to dive into a whole lot of that. But did you... I'm just kind of thinking myself, if I were to set up some sort of experiment, I don't know that we would really have the knowledge to really know that we're...
the means to verify yes, this is what we're seeing versus, oh, this is what we've been told is a lie.
Yeah.
You don't think you do? You really don't think you do?
I feel like I don't really have a deep enough grasp of physics to really say, hey, if I set up this experiment... this is the result I'll see if it's flat. This is the result I'd see if it's round.
Why don't you take the time to learn about it? Why don't you take the time to educate it? Because you will have more tools, and if you have the right tool for the job, you can get that job done. If you do not have the right tool for that job's going to be much harder.
Well,
you are denying yourself tools, and you're saying, I don't have the ability. Okay, then get the ability, then do it.
I'm talking specifically about where I'm at with my knowledge base right now, and to change that.
It doesn't matter where you are now. It matters where you want to be.
And if I did go out and do that, though, would I not have to be relying on experts who say, here's how physics is supposed to work, and I would thus be indoctrinating myself with a model?
I verified the laws of physics. I've verified thermodynamics. I've done the experiments to see thermodynamics in action. I've done the experiments to see all these different aspects. They tell us things. We can agree. We can look at things. Not everything's a lie. Not everything's a lie. You have to have discernment. The thing is our brains are so powerful that if we are lied to, we will instantly be able to tell that someone lied to us. Okay? But if I lie to you and I throw in a couple pieces of truth, so it's only 1/3 truth and the rest is lies, your brain will have a much harder time discerning whether that's a lie or not. And that's what they do. They take a lot of truth and they throw in what they want to lie about with it. And they present it in such a way and package it up and put a ribbon on it so we can fucking shove it down our throat.
All right. So we're almost out of time here, but there was one last question I wanted to wrap up with. What % sure are you that the Earth is flat?
I'm 100% sure that the heliocentric model has a lot of flaws in it.
But would you say...
And I'm about 100% sure that I've not been able to detect curvature, and so has a lot of other humans I've talked to.
So, what... Still didn't quite answer the question.
I can't answer your question because you're asking me, do I 100% know for a fact that the Earth is flat? No, I do not 100% have the knowledge and the time and the experience put in to tell you this is the model of our reality.
Okay.
But I can tell you these are the aspects I have verified, and we all need to make our own conclusions and continue to look at this.
So you're saying you don't necessarily believe, say, the Earth is flat. It's just the model that we have been presented with is
with the heliocentric model
Yes.
has a lot of inconsistencies with it that need to be evened out and explained, and no one has taken the time to explain it. And I've fucking been up to NASA. I've talked to them about these people. I've been to observatories and said, show me with your observatory telescopes a star. And you know what they showed me? A piece of paper with a black background and a star, but it's just freaking a light with 4 points on it. It's not an actual star. It's not anything that you can glean and understand the texture of the star. You can't see the design of it. It's just a light with 4 points on it. And they say, oh, that's a star. That proves everything that you're trying to tell me right now. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're dealing with when it comes to fighting back amongst certain of these things. With finding things out, it's such a struggle because there is such a heavy ego involved in the whole thing about it.
Sure.
There is so much human ego involved with that knowledge and with that understanding.
Sure. All right.
Okay. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're welcome.
Thanks for your
Thank you.
time. It was good to meet you and great talking with you.
You
man.
gotta do
That's
the
right.
thing. Here, I won't do it
Yes,
to you, huh?
thank you.
All right. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap, guys. You enjoy it? Wasn't too bad.
That was good shit.
It's good shit.
I hope you enjoyed it too.